Hi collectors, time for another Mad item review. So in this case we'll go through a bunch of different Australian Mad magazine items. So first up we have quite a big poster here that was given out as a mailing item. I think the way it worked was if you sent a fan letter or something to Mad, they'd then send this out to you in the mail. So you've got a bunch of artists here that you'd be aware of, such as Dave Berg, Don Martin, Al Jaffe, Bill Gaines and the others. And you've also got a bunch of Australian ones as well. For example, Bisso. Bisso did a lot of the cover art for various Australian mads in the 90s. Just for a size comparison, I'll show you the other Australian poster that I've shown in a previous video. So here was another one with very similar, if not the same art, obviously arranged differently, but yeah, it's quite a bit smaller. So it looks very similar to a souvenir that you might get from visiting the offices of MAD. I'll show you another one of those in a minute, a different one than you've seen on my channel before. So in this case we have a few Australian artists. I believe that this largely was one that was used by America and then they've added a few Australian artists at the top. Anyway, here's Bisso. He did a lot of the cover art of Australian Mad, and you can check out what pieces he did on Mad Trash. I believe Bernd has a listing of Bisso on there that you can check out some other pieces. We have Bill Gaines, of course. This piece here is very similar to another piece that I'll show you in a minute, in that the artists are doing a picture of Bill Gaines. Can't quite read who that is. Pacey, maybe? We have Zbund, Meldrum, Jim Hannaford. I believe all these ones are Australian artists. I could stand corrected there. Maybe Dean Taylor, I think he's Australian as well. But we have some others, of course. We have Angelo Torres down the bottom here. We have Jack Rickard, Joe Orlando, Mort Drucker, a quite young Mort Drucker. We have Nick Meglin, Len Brenner, Sergio Aragones, Paul Coker, Bob Clark with quite long hair there, Dave Berg, Al Jaffe, Jack Davis, Don Martin, Antonio Prohius. I don't think I've missed anyone, but it says up here, free gift, no charge, free, our price cheap. And I believe some of this also would be in other ones. But it's quite a cool piece because being from Australia, I grew up with Australian Mad and it always mixed the two, the American artists with the Australian artists. There definitely was pieces of Australiana actually done on the covers of Mad, and that's actually what I remember most as a kid. Like famous cricketers and other sports people of the time were on the cover of Mad, and also TV celebrities, of course. Alright, let's go to the next piece. So here we have another souvenir of going to the Mad offices. This is the American one, of course. Sorry about the glare on that. We have a cheap crummy souvenir of my visit to Mad magazine. Again, you have all the artists doing a picture of Bill Gaines there. And actually, this looks very, very similar to the other piece I just showed you. It could actually just be the same piece redone. It looks very, very similar. Of course, the other one had colour, whereas this doesn't. This piece here, I also believe was in a previous video featured in the Journal of Madness, this particular bit here. So down the bottom we have a few more artists. So we have Norman Mingo. As I've said previously, Norman Mingo kind of dates it to a certain point in time. Jack Davis, which is obviously a different Jack Davis than what was shown before. Again, a different Nick Meglin. We have Angelo Torres, a different one there. Sergio's the same, Antonio's the same, Al Jaffe's different, Len Brenner's the same. I assume that's John Putman. He wasn't in the other one. Berg was, Clark was, and Don Martin was, but he was over here. And Al Felstein, of course. As I've said in previous videos, it's quite interesting to see how they've used pieces of art in multiple places, and as I've also said, one of the kind of mysteries around a particular piece of art of a headshot of Bill Gaines that made the rounds in a lot of different pieces of art actually came from a Cartoonist Profiles magazine, which I showed in a previous video. Okay, so next up I've got a bunch of different Australian Mad magazines. If you're not particularly familiar with Australian Mad, there was actually a lot of original covers done. As I said before, that artist Bisso, he did this particular cover. He may have repurposed a existing cover or done a completely new one. A lot of Australian subject matter in here, so you may not get the reference, but anyway, I'll show you through a few of them. This is Jeff Fennick, a famous boxer, world champion. That was an Australian only cover for Lotto. It's done by Peter Meldrum, who was on that poster from before. We have Mad Max here, where it looks like they've done a bit of a paste up of Mingo Alfred face. Show dinosaurs, of course. Mad goes recycled. It says, "No, not the jokes, you idiot. The paper, we don't kill any trees to print this garbage." That's interesting. Wonder if they're still doing that. Jack Davis cover. This is one of my favourite covers growing up. The Olympics. These are all Australian singers. Twins. That was an Australian cover by Brolman. He's a political cartoonist now. One by Andrew Fife, and this is of Steve Vizard, and he used to have his own TV show. Not Mad related, but I'll show you what this refers to. This is actually a mug from the TV show. So Tonight Live with Steve Vizard. Very 80s there. We have famous footballers. So this is rugby league, rugby union, and Australian rules, or AFL. And last but not least, we have Bert Newton, who's an Australian personality. Norman Gunston. He was a comedian who used to dress in character and interview famous American actors. And most of them didn't realise that he was in character, they just thought he was a quirky fellow. Last but not least, I thought I'd show you a couple more of the Australian big books. So there's these long format books. There's a bunch of them, and they were Australian and other content. Sometimes they were just the cover. In this case, Bisso did this cover. I've got another video going through a complete one of these, so I won't do that now. And I'll just show you the last one there I have, which is Jungle Mad. And just as one last comparison, I'll show you the other types of Australian books. So this was one I showed in a previous video. I may have shown this, I'm not quite sure. So we've got Australian paperbacks, which were printed by a completely different group than the American ones, printed in Australia or Australian made. It's just got the standard content. We've got these which actually have cardboard covers, so they're the same rough size as a magazine, slightly a bit bigger. And then we have the long books. So as far as I'm aware, they're the only formats that Australian Mad has been released in. But anyway, there's a fairly long history, as with a lot of different international Mads that got a big run, and Australian Mad is actually still going, although the artwork isn't still being produced by Australian artists, unfortunately. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong on that one, but I'm pretty sure that's accurate. Okay, that's all for this video. As always, if you'd like to subscribe, please do so, and we'll catch you next time.